If I had stayed in Sierra Leone, I would undoubtedly have become a doctor. And had I, like my father, been married to 3 women, had I many children, I would have become a traditionalist, a profound believer in the Islamic faith, and my life put wholly to the service of society. Like my father, I would no doubt have been a happy person who would find satisfaction in serving my people. But destiny has chosen for me a different direction. I moved from the we to the I, or say uprooted from A to B. My collective became my individual. I am because I was. Contrary to the African Ubuntu philosophy that says, I am because we are. With this transformation, I honestly ask myself, who and what have I become now? With the experience of now, I know that a constant does not change, and that something that moves is in dire need of change. By going west, I changed. This displacement made my shadow side visible, because anyone who dares to show his vulnerability also dares to come in contact with his downside. I'm still on my way, in motion. In my new home, I was tolerated, but not accepted. Sometimes I seem to have found my niche between A and B, sometimes not at all. As if uprooted, I was torn away from my familiar surroundings by the war. Switching between 2 worlds and cultures has made me an artist of life. I regularly play chess between there and here. Due to my wide playing field, it is impossible to foresee the consequences of each move. Uprooted so that insight, experience, and courage partly determine the choice of move. My playing style changes over the years from passive, tactical, aggressive, to forcing or radical. As a live artist, I know that my play will never be the same because I move. I continuously transform. Whoever is constantly on the move finds nothing and at the same time stands in the world as a curious child. Moving is alienation, uprooting, triumphing, failing and getting up again. Moving is transformation. With my work as a journalist and novelist, I go out searching for topics which society feels uncomfortable to talk about. For example, in my country of birth, Sierra Leone, where more than 80% of females undergo female genital mutilation. Though it is a taboo topic in Sierra Leone, I dare to stand against it. No female member in my own family have been spared against this archaic and barbaric practice. I raise my voice against it, knowing fully that I'm stepping on powerful toes. The same goes for racism and discrimination in the Netherlands, a topic I write vehemently about in my weekly columns in Dutch newspaper Trouw. We all carry with us cultural repertoires, and we activate different parts of these during different encounters in our lives. However, culture do not communicate. People do. Cultures do not move from place to place, but people do. We carry with us a set of cultural values and clues to understanding, which are mobilized when we interact. In moving, we change, we transpire, we aspire. And as a result, we stop being the old version of ourselves. I have, since my relocation to the Netherlands, developed my critical thinking as a way to challenge society to think and rethink. Because I believe, just like in chemistry, that continuous shaking prevents clumps from forming in the culture. If the culture clumps, there will be a lack of oxygen at the bottom, and it will prevent the culture from growing. So, shake it up. If necessary, step on toes, and instead of tiptoeing, walk to leave your footprint. Thank you.
Yes. Baba Tarawale, everybody. Writer, journalist, and you heard him say it, columnist at Dutch newspaper Trouw. Maybe one more round of applause. Come on, a nice big one. And Baba's performance opens a very special evening. Tonight is a collaboration between ZAM magazine, Afrovibes, and our hosts here at the Balie. So we've got a great evening in store for you tonight. And I'm not the only host. My name is Ikenna Azuike, but I'm not the only host.
All right. Well, my name is Augustina Austin, also known as Miss Abba, and we will be taking you through this impactful and beautiful program of tonight, highlighted how we made it African artists take center stage.
Indeed, we've got 4 artists who will be joining us in a conversation, and they'll be joining us here at the table. You guys in the audience will have the opportunity to ask them some questions, as will people at home. I don't know which camera I have to look in, but you people at home will see me somehow. You can use the live cast to send in your questions, right?
Absolutely. And of course, also you beautiful ladies and gentlemen who are here live get the opportunity to drop your questions. So that will be some beautiful interactions for tonight. Absolutely. All right. Baba Tarawale, whose column you just heard, Trixie Munyama, the choreographer of Smear, which will be performed later tonight in this very space. So if you haven't gotten a ticket yet, make sure that you get one for later on.
They'll have to. We won't let you out unless you get a ticket. It's that simple. Join us at the table. Trixie, Baba, Agustina, and myself. Another round of applause, please,
Have
everybody.
a seat.
You didn't pull out Baba's chair. I feel like, I don't know.
Probably the African part of me, right? That expects the African man to pull up my chair.
That's what we're doing. Okay, Trixie, thank you for joining us. You are from Namibia. Mm-hmm. You're currently based in the capital, Windhoek, I understand. Mm-hmm. Super multi-talented. You are a choreographer, yes, dance and movement teacher, performer yourself, and a traditional healer.
Yes.
All right.
No, you seem surprised. You've done our research.
We came prepared.
Yeah, that's something that I don't talk about so much outside of the official work, you know, the dance teacher, the mother.
Yeah.
So the traditional healing is just in the box somewhere else. Yeah.
Very packed box that you have, though.
Yeah.
And I'd like us to dig into that a little bit later. But first of all, tell me, how do all of those influences kind of reflect in your work? And perhaps let's focus on the performance that people can see straight after this.
Yeah. So because I'm an individual and there's stories that I live and see around myself and within my spaces, right? And I don't think being an artist means, you know, interacting with everyday life and seeing that and putting it into your work, because we don't do entertainment for the sake of entertainment. We do stories that are relevant to ourselves, to our societies, our communities, and so they you know, all these parts of myself influence what I do and what I bring into my work.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. Well, we'll talk about that a lot more, but I think we have another
We do.
Artist all ready to introduce?
Absolutely, absolutely. Without further ado, we are going to look at one video that I've looked at, and from this moment on, I'm going to spread it with every artist in my environment. Coming from Jalili Atiku, and he is the 2021 Tami Mnienele Foundation Prize winner, and is staying in the residency. His performance, Eyi Oye, you see behind in a bit, plays at this year's Afrovibes Festival. Last month, we followed him as he did another performance in the street of Amsterdam and named Moko Moro. Let's take a look.
To me, the mainstream does not exist. It is only the colonial mainstream that exists, and which I am struggling when I do performance in the indigenous way. And that is me telling you that this is where I am. To me, body is material and it is sacred. It is a material that activates your memory body. It activates your knowing body. When I say you, I mean the audience. So it activates the thinking process in the audience. That's why one of the things that make me get more trauma is you make my body to be enemy of the society with this COVID. I'm a Yoruba man, I'm a Yoruba person. And you know, this is like a point far which I created, a kind of object that connects you as a human to the past, the present, and the future. The element which I wear is a symbol of the power of the feminine body. And putting it in my head, which is the strengthality of my beingness, it's kind of radiating that energy.
Tell me
the
truth. Tell me the truth about COVID.
Bring out that sincerity in you. Let the pharmaceutical company tell us the truth. Let's China, for example, where it all come from, tell us the truth about it. The point where I put my performance, that is like a T-junction, where there is a road here, there is a road here, there is a road here, and there's a road here. Only Gumeri Aye. And that's the center where every energy meets and activates.
The joy of the moment. I can feel that I'm free.
We have gone through the colonial process where they have destroyed all our ancestors. So we, at the moment, we are reactivating it.
Tell me the truth.
We all talk about globalization. As a global person, what am I bringing to this space? What am I bringing from my own? Because there is no space called global. It is the entirety of the humanity. So that means that before you come into being global, you must have a defined space, which is your own territory. So are you bringing your experience into the fore, or you are ashamed, or are you borrowing heavily from outside of your own experience and becoming like a fake person? So in the future where you are free to be who you want to be, you are free to be what it is, the inherent in you, without anybody being telling you, no, you can do that. So it is not about, I don't need acceptance from anybody to become Jalili. No, I don't. I don't need acceptance from somebody to tell me that I am a human being. No. But what I need from you is to be you yourself, and I be myself.
Wonderful. If you ask me, very thought-provoking, I would say it raises a lot of questions in me, or just to say, I would say that. I've heard, inherent in being you. What did you think about this, Baba?
Yes, I think absolute truth in that we have to accept each other's own experience.
Yeah.
When you don't accept someone's experience, that is an insult. And we need to accept that somebody is different. And you too, you are different. So only when we do that, we have a central position where there is more space to meet each other. Because when I look at the film, I see two worlds. One which is from outside, observing. Some of these things will happen in Africa, people just absorb into it without being the outsider. But in this case, we have the outsider, we have the insider. So it makes it a bit controversial in the sense, who is getting the information?
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting that that's what you see, the outsider-insider thing. What about you, Trixie?
Yeah, I see that there's a sense of ownership and authentically being who you are without any colonial labels and spaces, and to have freedom to create in a space that may confine you somehow.
Yeah.
I think colonialization did a number on us, on Africans, in stating that what we believe in our ancestral beliefs. I heard something about ancestors as well, and having that new ways of defining who we are as children of the spirit, and providing platforms to perform these. It's something very radical.
Is that something that you've always had? This kind of pride to own your roots, as it were, wherever you are in the world, wherever you're performing?
No, it came recently, actually. I think as I matured, as I grew, and also as I understood, the stories that I've been told by my elders, doing my own research, because that information was not available to me. It was not readily available.
So when was the moment then?
Exactly.
Can you pinpoint it?
When I went through my initiation. I mean, this is me as an African, as having roots with my spiritual beliefs. That's when things influenced me. Even my artistry changed completely after that moment, because then my eyes were opened to other things, to hearing other sounds, to being somebody else.
And for both of you, when you have that awareness, and then you're traveling abroad in Europe, is that is knowing like your heritage and the colonial baggage of your heritage, does that become emotional baggage for you, or is it empowering that you are owning who you are and you're performing in front of European audiences or something?
You're not scared anymore. You're not scared to really own that space. And I think that's for me, that's even better. Like what Jalili said, you're not being fake, you're not copying somebody else, because, we are trained as, went to university, do dance school, we did ballet, contemporary dance, European standards of what a dancer is. And so there's, within the indigenous practices, there's so much freedom to break away from that. There's freedom to deconstruct all of these standards that we are defined by.
And we even hear that from the video. There's no such thing as globalization. Such a strong statement.
We create it, yeah.
Right. What is your take on that, Baba?
Well, before coming to that, globalization, I think in my case, when I move from A to B, as I said in my column, from Africa, Sierra Leone to here, what happened to me in my transformation is the fact that I decided to create two worlds. One is in my own home, where I create all my Africanness. Yeah. My food I eat, the smell of my house, everything is just Africans. Just like my embassy. When you have an embassy, it's just that country. In my house is Africa, it's Sierra Leone. But when I move out, consciously or unconsciously, I change. Because I'm interacting with people who don't understand that culture.
And why do you change? Why do you feel the need to change?
Why I have the need to change? Because in order to connect, you have to accept also that your own culture, your own tradition is not the only.
Wow, but I think that's pretty provocative. So you mean literally in the way you talk or dress, or the give me an example, make it concrete.
It's just, we all know that when you talk to a girl, your voice is different, right?
All right. Very vivid.
When you speak to me, it's different, but when you speak to a lady, then your voice seems a bit lower, or seems... I think, guys, do you agree?
I don't know about that.
We hear a slight laugh, but yeah, definitely understand what you're...
Is it not, I don't know, like a superpower if you can be like Jelly, take inspiration from him and own your roots in public and be...
Yeah, because the thing is that when I have time to interact with my African brothers and sisters, when we have that safe space to be exactly who we are, I choose those moments to be. But when I move into another space we are in, I'm in the minority. I don't want my culture and tradition to be the only focal point, because you are always in the spotlight, always trying to explain yourself. And that is what most of us in Europe, we face. Whenever you are here, you speak with Dutch people, you are in the defense. You have to explain yourself. So I'm tired of explaining myself. I'm tired of explaining myself. Who are you? Where are you coming from? And what's your tradition or culture? I'm tired. So I need to be seen as equal.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
How do you address the topic of globalization? Would you say there is a thing as globalization or not?
Well,
soft.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Or do I need to lower the bass, like Baba was saying?
We'll sit more up close. I think this helps, right?
Well, when I talk about globalization, I see also two worlds, online and offline. When we're online, then it does not exist. I hope you get the point I'm making.
I'm getting there. I'm waiting for the.
When we're online, we have the feeling that globalization does not exist. But when we connect physically, then we see the two worlds apart. And we can decide to say it does not exist. But the actual thing is that when I look at the film, I see the Dutch people cycling around, some of them. So you see the two worlds, which are different.
Let me shift focus a little bit and focus on your work, Trixie, because your work also adds another thought layer, as it were, when it comes to gender and identity. Can you explain why you do that and how you reflect that in your work?
Mostly because within the spaces, I live in a very nationalistic nation after, neo-colonial spaces that kind of does not give women voices. And the women they're in power, but it just looks good on paper that we have, 50% of, we have gender balance in the parliament, in political arenas, but yet women are not visible, they're invisible in all spaces. And so the work that I do gives voice and gives power to these spaces, because I recognize within my traditional practices, indigenous practices, the women are free to transform and to have more fluidity within these cultural spaces, which is not seen within the neo-colonial spaces. And also shifting from one gender to the next, there's a fluidity within the work that I play around with and that I've seen within healing practices that is there, that this transformative energy that we don't, we kind of dismiss that women have no power. But we've always known that the women are the center of our existence. We were taught differently now. We're taught that, they must be at the back and not at the front. And so it's an empowerment for me to give these characters and these personas some form of voice.
And what's the reception when you're back home in Namibia, in Windhoek?
Well, I have audiences that walk out of the work because
Out.
Yes, because a lot of our people are not accustomed to seeing works like this, like Jalili's works in our communities.
That's intense.
It's radical. It's not, and for a woman to be on a stage performing these kinds of things, it's quite it's a very conservative nation that I live in, so it's very different. The reception is different from there to here, funny enough.
Yeah. And the positive reactions that stick out to you?
Those are the ones that I hold on to.
Right.
Yeah.
The other ones, people walking out is also, I can imagine, pretty powerful as well, because beforehand, you can almost spot the people, okay, I think that one's I think he's
Yeah, you can see by their eyes and by their, there's the shock, why is she doing this? And I kind of understand, because there's also sacredness to the work, and being an artist, I have to be sensitive to those things. I have to be very careful on what I bring in and what I do share. So I can't share a lot, and I have there's these sensitivities that one has to really be careful of. Yeah.
Yeah. In the words of Erykah Badu, I'm sensitive about my art.
Yes.
Exactly. Baba, I'm curious because you are right here in the center of the Netherlands, literally. And, we hear two artists that are involved in raising questions, society and their importance. So in the Netherlands, there's often a resistance when the artist is being associated with a societal role. Do you see any of this? How is your take on that?
Well, let me go back to what you just said about how your art is being presented and how the reactions from your own people. And what I have noticed is that, colonization stopped our progression. We are progressing. We don't know how it should have looked like if the white Europeans never came. We don't know. We can only guess. So, but we had our traditions and cultures as we see. This was what we had. And then colonization came and it stopped. They forced us to take a distance to go underground. And now we are coming back. And that coming back is not acceptable to many people who have learned to see life differently or have gone with that progress that we...
Well, I think it's not just we're coming back, though. I mean, it's been there already for years. Like, Cubism as an art movement is inspired by a lot of West African sculptures. Right? So all around us, we've seen how African culture has influenced the landscape of Europe, as it were.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's coming back.
Yeah.
But long ago, it was underground.
The awareness is coming back.
Yeah, it's coming back. Because I came from a culture wherein, my mother is a traditionalist, my father too, and deeply into my African culture. And we know what Islam did to that culture and tradition. My father is ashamed to be part of that tradition because of Islam. Does not allow any type of animism. So he's ashamed. But in-house, he is. But outside, he's not. And if we look at the Catholic Church, Church...
Before we get on to the Catholic Church...
Okay, they took a lot of traditions.
But we're gonna move on with the program just now, just because I can't believe it, but we're already running over halfway. I'd like to give the floor to another speaker.
Absolutely. We are going to
Lisette Ma Neza.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. I love to listen to the talk. How is everyone doing? Yeah, you're good? So during the talk, because I wanted to react on what was happening, and I felt like, oh my God, I will be running out of poems, so I wrote a poem while you were talking about the talk. So this is tonight, halfway through. I scroll and scroll and scroll, searching for me history. From A to Z, from you to me, in spaces that do not allow my voice to speak, for my voice has no bass enough, not even around ladies. This poetry, from Sierra Leone to Amsterdam, from I to we, from we to me, inherently, I seek and seek. Wondering, is this his story? But whose story is his story? Who is the he? In a time of iPhone 12s and iMacs and identity and iPad, still, it isn't me. I story. She story, my sis story, history. Mine is my ancestry, is Shakespeare, is Hamilton, is Koning Willem Alexander instead of Erykah Badu, Mama, and Sweet Rhonda. Now, this is the conversation of tonight, pointing to the moment we first felt rooted. We touch upon discrimination, 5 December, and papernoten, colonization instead of progression, and are we coming back, or were we here already, all around? Who would Europe be without you and me? We touch upon finding freedom in the smell of our house, on constant change in order to connect, on owning the smell of my own house in public, on Instagram, on the streets of Amsterdam. Today I read this question on the internet: who invented Black trauma? I scroll and scroll and scroll, seeking for Black joy. Black joy, Black joy to join. I find it in the outfits of the host, the love in my sister's voice. My sister is a healer. We heal each other, reflect ourselves, project our parents' projections. We crawl into our mother's lap. We go back to the story of those before us, the indigenous. We grow back into our own bodies, our stories, her story, I story, a mystery, my story, a mystery. They say this poetry is luxurious. In school, they said this poetry is luxury. They say this poetry is luxury. It is poverty instead. It's insane. It's in pain. This poetry is politics. They say this poetry is politics. It is not. It is history. It is my story. It is I story. It is future. It is mine. It is here. It is my family. It is joy. It's in need. It is healed. It is me. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Lisette Ma Neza. Right. I'm stealing just the 4 minutes that we have left of our time. Trixie, what are your thoughts on her performance?
I picked up, she said something about are we in colonialism or progression? That was the question. I think that also came from my friend here, Babaka. And the question is really, are we going backwards or are we progressing? And are we as Africans really owning our own traumas, our collective trauma, and carrying the baggage, but then we're going forward? And the spirit of Africa has always been going forward.
Yeah.
Always hustling, always trying to make the best out of each situation for the betterment of the next generation. And so, and my hope, thank you so much for that. It just gave me some ideas.
Oh, that's exciting. And what would be your take on that, Lisette? Are we progressing?
What I think is interesting of what you just said about we were never meant to leave things behind, or like we were always like forwarding what happened to the people before us or something like that. So I feel like, yes, we're progressing, but we should never cut ties or something with our history in a way.
Yes,
we should instead of like cutting ties, we have to go through it and then, yeah.
If I can just add something to that.
Sure, go ahead.
As a philosopher, in the African philosophy of Ubuntu, we have 3 aspects of life: the unborn, the living, and the living dead. So it is a circle. So as a living, we need to keep this world intact for the next generation to come, the unborn, who should come on this earth. And then we, the living, we also have respect for the old, because they are getting the transformation to the other world, and then they come back. So we are moving in circle. So, but in this world, as the living, we think in progression of backward, but in the philosophical sense of it, we are in a circle. So all of us are in this together. So that's how I pick on it, you know. So yeah.
And when it comes to, I mean, it's beautiful how you express it, but I wonder, I mean, a lot of young Africans and people with mixed cultures over here have a lot of like very concrete questions. You carry your heritage. How do you reconcile your heritage with your home? You know, where the place that you physically are is your home, but you also carry your heritage with you on the one hand, but on the other hand, is there really a substitute for being back where your roots are? You know, how important is it to go back to Sierra Leone for you, or are you fine without that?
On that note, let's give Lisette Ma Neza another round of applause as she goes on to her next performance, which will take place at the Brakke Grond. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Lisette.
Thank you very much.
I think you've raised a very important subject, which is what is happening now, like people of mixed heritage, especially those who are born here, live here. One of the things they miss is that Africa groundiness. That's how we call it, the initiation you are talking about. You know, when you are born in Africa, you go through certain steps of initiations, which I found out that most of our kids, I have 2 daughters who are born here, they don't go through those processes. So they hang in between. Sometimes I have sympathy for that, because as a father, I see my kid who is not in balance in terms of heritage here and the way forward. So what is happening now, and that is the reason why we need to do more of this, Afrovibes, and bringing these cultures together, because we need to have more of those born here, raised up here, to be reconnected to us in Africa.
And by reconnection, do you mean more like going back?
Not going back, but in the sense of being associated to where you belong. It's about belonging. And we are all fighting to belong somewhere. So if you hear all the time you don't belong, it is very traumatic. So getting that space for people to belong is essential now. And that is the reason why I really enjoyed Jalili's performance, because this makes, if I'm standing there, I will almost go into ecstasy. When I see it happening, I say, wow, he has brought my root back to me.
Yeah.
That's how I experience it.
A sense of belonging. Trixie, how do you see this coming to play? As one, you even expressed, you know, your initiation, so there were defining moments that took you, for a lot of us, back or in connection. What are some of the things that you, I wouldn't say recommend, but you would like to see more of as to how people can get that sense of belonging?
I think there's, defining yourself. But then in order for you to define yourself, you need to know who you are. You need to investigate your roots. You need to go back to your grandmothers and your grandparents and ask, who are my people? And so who am I? And I'm seeing that also on my observations with European Africans, if that's sure. The right word. There is that imbalance that I have seen. I see it in the eyes. I see it in the auras. Yeah. And it's not your fault. It's not the fault of anybody. I think it's just where we are, the context that we're living in as a global citizens. But the question is to really hold a piece of home in your heart somewhere, even though you are in a different space. You walk with others, you walk with your guides, you walk with these roots that you have, and they strengthen you as well. Yeah. To maneuver around in these spaces.
You raise a point that something I've been thinking about quite a lot, which is there's this label. You said Europeans in Africa, Afropeans, right? Yeah. But what are the kind of cultural signifiers that kind of make someone no longer an African immigrant, and then all of a sudden they're an Afropean? I feel like there's a different kind of narrative related to both of those two groups. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think there's beauty in that too. There's also a very rich heritage if you're an Afropean living in Europe. You have so much richness and diversity within you. And I think, and it will never leave you. These mixtures and these
But do you think you're automatically an Afropean if you are, if you've just arrived via the Mediterranean and Libya and you land in Italy, are you an Afropean? I don't think so. I feel like that has I don't know what you guys think, it has a kind of different...
What is an Afropean? What is the definition of that? Is it
Good question.
first generation African Europeans? Sorry, or is it?
Well, if I look online and I see blogs, it's a lot of hipsters. It's like some of the people here in the room. It's kids who are mixed. They're looking fashionable. They're looking. They're wearing traditional. And they are.
Or it is this group that is in conflict with, as in, who am I? I'm holding a European passport or a Dutch passport or whatever, and my mom tells me every day I'm an African. Or it's sometimes met in this conflicting space. That's what I see as well. It's an ongoing discussion. Pretty much a part which would define the imbalance. Baba expressed it. When I see my daughter's imbalance, you even sense it out of the aura and the energy, which I think is it's more than a skill to have that, to even sense that. When does the imbalance happen? I would really like to know, when are we imbalanced? Am I imbalanced?
Well, if I go back to what you just said, who is Afropean and who is not, and when does that take place? When I came to this country 20 years ago, I was not part of the society as a whole. I was not accepted to the society because even those who look like me from Suriname and the Antilles, I was different because I don't speak the Dutch language. I don't know the culture. So I was not part of it. So slowly, I started, I studied and I started getting into the interaction. And when you go into that space of interaction where you're no more an outsider, you are no more a spectator, then you become an Afropean because you are part of it. You are part of it. You are now into it, not somebody who is looking from a distance. So mostly, if you look at the asylum seekers who are now in the RZCs, they are spectators, most of them. They cannot take part in the society, so they look from a distance. So when they move from that space and they come into the space where we are, then they get that mixture. And that's when I think, in my opinion, then you become part of the society also you live in. But you have people who the society does not want to be part of the society, and they live apart. I can't call them Afropean. They are Afropean in waiting. They are waiting. Yeah.
All right.
Should we open this up to the audience?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do we have any more? Someone's holding up a note for me. What does it say? You play. Have made. Have we made it? Which is indeed the question that. Okay. First of all, we're going to go to the audience, and I'm going to pick up a mic and go to Jalili.
Thank you. My name is Jalili Atiku. And I just have two questions. The first one, the other time you said about online and offline. I want you to really define who are offline, who are online. Yeah, and that is the issue of Afro-European, and this is the first time I'm hearing this. I have a really big problem about vocabulary, and that who define what. Yeah, and that label is something that I really, really struggling with. Yeah, something happened to me during Afrovibe, and up to now, I still can't process it. I'm one of the artists who is participating, and the Afrovibes treats us specially, and so they organize a pickup for me every time I will perform. And at a point, an African person came to pick me. I was really happy. Yeah, my brother is coming to pick me. And I walked to him. I said, "You coming to pick me?" And he looked at me and said, "No." He said, "No." But he was coming to pick me. So I went standing in the cold, completely dislocated, and I was shivering, looking at my brother that's supposed to call me, and I said, "No." And I walked to him after 10 minutes. I walked back, and I told Bean, I said, "I didn't see the driver he sent." But he said he's standing outside. And I came to meet him, and I said, "You came to pick me." And he looked at me. I said, "Oh, sorry, yes." Do you understand? So what I'm trying to say, that what we define ourselves,
that we define ourselves in a more negative way. I am having this brown color. Even though I stay 100 years in Europe, I will still have this brown color. It's not going to change. So does that make me an Afro-European? No, I still remain Africa. It does not matter whether you are born here, you grew up here, or there, or here. You are Africa, you are Africa. Yes. So don't let us tag that label.
That's interesting.
Passionately spoken.
Do we have any other questions here in the audience? No one? Yes, go for it.
Okay, my name is West. What I wanted to say is that just to support, so there's two things. Those where I come from, there's those who are educated, there's those who are uneducated in a bad way. So school is being considered as the most important thing. Like when you're going to school, normal school, which is now this one that you read and write. And there's those school that you are being taught by your mother and your parents at home. So that one is not being considered as the best class, no? So now when you are listening to people speaking English and then they reach to the point of Afropian, and they are starting with A, which means them, and they end up with a location where they are staying, that's become very dangerous for me, who is uneducated. I'm just supporting my brother here.
I mean, I get it. I get your point, Jalili, but I guess there are also kids born over here who don't feel fully African because they have one African parent and one mixed parent. And I can imagine people also are looking for community. So perhaps labels like that can help. There's someone at the back. Let me go, and then I'll come to you, sir, okay? Oh, yeah.
And I completely understand I completely agree. My name is Kiza Magendane, and I want to subscribe to what you just said based on what Baba said in the beginning. We should accept each other's experience. So I think you perfectly explained that. But I have a question regarding assimilation. I wonder what you think on the concept from a moral perspective. If someone from strategic reasons choose to assimilate in a new country and says, listen, I'm Dutch, although I come from Africa or from Congo, where I come from, I'm Dutch, I eat bureko and those things, and I listen to Jan Smith. What is your take on that?
Okay, the questions are becoming many. So
becoming many, yes.
So
just a few minutes. Go ahead.
You want to go first? Or?
The first question was?
It wasn't really a question. It was more reacting to the comment from Jalili about the importance of embracing Africanness, as opposed to...
I also think, I'm also of the opinion that, culture is not stagnant, right? It moves and it evolves.
Yeah.
And I believe that we should be able to then have the freedom to define ourselves in whatever way we choose to. We cannot enforce ideas and philosophies on individuals. And I think that's humanity. Ubuntu is about acceptance of community and being free to be who you want to be and define yourself as anything, really.
Just to add to that, at one time, some years ago, I defined an African as somebody who has met 3 criteria to be an African. First of all, you should have a tribe, a community you belong to. You should have the language,
right? And
you should know your community. So people who are born here, who came from the Caribbean, Antillen, who have the past, they had this African heritage, there is a possibility now to have a DNA test to go and look for your origin. There's a possibility now. Even in Sierra Leone, they give passport to people who have been recognized as Sierra Leoneans from the state, from all over. So there's a movement going on that. So Africanness, before, I saw it as something much more. You have to be somebody who have a language to speak. You have a community you belong to.
A culture.
Then you have a land. You have to get the soil. So these are things I was very strong on. But now it becomes a little bit fluid. I think we have to be very flexible.
Yes.
When it comes to what is culture, what is Africa, and that. So if I have to go to the question of the offline and the online, what I was trying to explain is that online, you don't see a difference. A child in Africa who knows how to play with mobile phones more than myself. When I go to Sierra Leone, if I put my mobile I'm ashamed to put my mobile on the table because the mobiles I see there, they are more advanced than what I'm having. So most of these guys, they are more advanced in what is the online. So in that online, the competition is almost equal.
Which makes it more of a global space.
A global space.
Right. Accessible and reachable to everyone.
So they play with this thing all over the world, so they have this connection, as if there's no difference. But offline, when we come into the space, then there's a difference. You're a black man, you're an African, you have an accent, you don't speak the language, you don't belong here. So we have all those negative connotations. So that's what I was trying to explain. Then if I go back to the Afropean, I think some of us have answered it. You know, I can imagine you have problems with labels, and we all have problems with labels in one way or the other, you know, but sometimes it makes it easier when you have to say, okay, you are Afropean, because I see myself as Afropean, and you may have problem with that, but the thing is that I'm an African also. When I go back home, even my own people, sometimes they see me as European. They tell me, you don't smell like us, you don't walk like us. I'm a bit arrogant. I look into the eyes when I speak, and I walk straight up, and I have the feeling that I know everything. Then I'm being classified. My mom tells me that you are different, you know. So let's accept that transformation takes place.
Yeah.
When you move from A to B, you are never the same again. You cannot go back to A and say, I'm that African. Even you, Jalilia, to be frank with you, when you move from Africa to here, some things have changed. From you, yourself, as an African.
Right.
Something has changed.
We're taking one more question.
Kiza would really like an answer to his question about assimilation. Trixie.
Could you rephrase the question?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Just remind, it's...
If someone wants to assimilate to a new country, morally, what do you think? Would you understand when someone make that choice strategically in order to survive and maybe for future perspective and says, you know what, I'm Dutch, I don't care about whatever African or whatever, I'm simply Dutch, I do Dutch things and...
I think I can speak for myself as an individual. When I came to this country, in order to be able to cope and get success, I need to develop my individual. That collectiveness of we, I need to live it and think about myself. Only me. I have to get my studies in order. I have to get my life in order. It was about me. So that is assimilation in that time. I was trying to know the Dutch culture, to know the Dutch way of doing things, to really go deeper into it. And when I got that, now I can be able to serve my society back. I can go back to the we.
Unfortunately, I don't... It does, but I think that's a conversation for afterwards. Do we have time for one more question?
We do, yes.
We do, great, because I saw another hand. Was there someone's? Yeah, here, okay, let's go to you first.
Could we mash
what's your name and what's your question?
I'm nervous about you holding the mic. My name's Eliza. Thank you very much. It was, I think I'm going to leave the comment that I had because I found the starting premise that the thing that we didn't touch on was power, whether it was political, cultural, economic, and that our sense of our identity has a lot to do with whether we perceive ourselves to have power or not. And when you look at Europeans and the flexibility they have with their identities, because that identity is not attached to the power that they have in society. So they can choose whatever identity that they want, but when we have no power, then we find power in a more static identity. And it was interesting that we didn't talk about that. My question is, the topic of the conversation is how we made it. So to the artists who have taken center stage, what were the key things that you felt were important to you making it in whatever the arena might have been?
That was our concluding question. Could we hold it and then go to the other question, then save it for last? The best for last.
Thank you. Thank you for the talk. And it builds on the last two questions. Baba, in the beginning, you talked about, I want to be an equal. And something that stuck with me, I have a North African mother, but she didn't teach me her language because she thought I would grow up not learning the Dutch language well, which also did happen. But I still found this struggle for equality. And then later in my life, I read Fanon, and he talked about how when this white European metropolis, they dictate what the terms are to be equal. So it's this battle, this struggle for equality is already past because we cannot even enter the arena for some reason based on who or where we come from. And how do you feel that when you feel it? Like in the Netherlands, you want to be equal, but the terms are not dictated by us, people like you.
And also from an artistic perspective as well, maybe for Trixie.
Yeah, so is that the question now, how we made it?
Please save that for last. We will drop that question again so that we can answer his, and then we finalize that with that.
Okay. Equality. Yeah, I think the power dynamics in these spaces determine and dictate how you define yourself. We don't have the liberty to define ourselves as freely as we'd like to. I think we are also labeling ourselves. By virtue of us being in these spaces, we have to confine somehow. We have to either even almost make ourselves a little bit smaller just to fit in. So really, are we free then? Are we really having that freedom to be who we are? To be unapologetically black or African in these spaces, and who defines that? Yeah.
Okay, yes, it's a very relevant question. I think, I said in the beginning that I'm a columnist for a Dutch newspaper, Trouw, and I was put in a box also to write about discrimination and racism, which perhaps I just want to write about birthday parties like Dutch people. I just want to write about simple things, that I saw a flower and it's smelling so good, because that's what white people do. They enjoy those things. They enjoy the small things of life. But most black people, we are put into a box of hard thinking. If I sit with Kiza, a friend of mine, when we sit down, we only talk about difficult things. Why don't we just talk about simple things?
Yes.
But we are forced to talk about difficult things all the time.
Yes.
I had a conversation with someone, I do moderation, like Agustina, and I noticed a lot of black and brown people are getting asked to moderate things about diversity,
Of course.
And I was just like, please, give us the boring subjects, I'm begging you, just give me something about, I don't know, some financial legislation, I'll do it. I get you, I feel you.
Yeah.
Listen, we're running out of time, maybe we should go to that final question.
Absolutely. So, have we made it?
No, I don't know what that means even. I have no idea. I was just going to say add on to my brother here, what he said about sometimes you just want to create a piece about flowers and, trolling through the streets and being happy and really that's the next leg of ourselves, because we are living in a struggle, and our histories and our stories have been told through struggle. Yep. And when can we breathe? When can we as artists just make stories that are like, la, 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 why not? And why not as well? Why do we not give ourselves permission to do so? And I think it's also because mostly we don't have that power. We're not holding the power for us to do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I haven't made it. Yeah.
Some.
When will you? Sorry, when will you have made it?
I don't know. No.
Not going there.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like Mama Jamena Koni, who is dancing at over 70 years of age. Martha Graham also danced after 60 years of age. There's never really a time where you do stop. There's no goal to reach and say I've reached my pinnacle. I think there's just
maybe
continuation.
More philosophically, like a state of mind, and when you reach that, then you're completely liberated and you've made it in that sense.
That is the idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go, Baba.
I think just like Mandela said, a long walk to freedom. We have a long walk to make it. We are in progress. We are going through that. And just to add something to that, because I'm a writer myself. When I write about Africa, you want to write about those cultural, traditional things which white people want to read.
It just sends the energy from this.
And Chimamanda, for example, the Nigerian writer, when she writes about Africa in a different perspective.
Yeah.
She writes about the elite. She writes about people with money, they have a life, they've succeeded. In the beginning, some Europeans don't want to read it because they think, yeah, this is not Africa we know. But the Africa is diverse. So the question of making it, I think we are on the way. And let diversity take charge. Let everyone with talent, different way of things, what gives you energy, put attention into that. Do your thing, and don't get confined to just one space because that's what people expect of you.
Well, I think that's a lovely way to end the evening. You got a Mandela quote in there, you got Chimamanda in there, and you even did this at the end. That's a beautiful end.
Perfect timing of closing. I love that.
Thank you very much, everybody. Jalili. Remind you about Trixie?
I've had such a good time. I wish this could go on, but you know, as time does not permit us, we will see a lot more from Trixie. I mean, you have a lot to do. She will perform here at 8:30, so you should get your tickets. I think it's outside. If you haven't done so yet, to see in that wonderful expression and all of that what she shared here expressed in dance all the way. Also, the Afrovibes Festival continues. We are like right in the middle of the rest that is going to take place. So it will continue for another 2 days. So make sure that you check out the remaining program full on. Jalili is also going to perform. I can't wait to see more of that in Utrecht and Rotterdam. All right, doing it all Randstad in here in the Netherlands. I love that. So make sure that you also catch him there. And also, if you would like to stay updated on what African artists, journalists, writers, thought-provoking people, and all of that are doing, and also would you like to share some of their voices and their art form, make sure that you subscribe to ZAM magazine, because that will keep you posted all the way. And of course, not to forget the social media platforms at ZAM magazine.
Yes,
all right.
ZAM. Thank you very much, everyone. To Afrovibes, the Balie.
All right.
And the ZAM magazine. Goodbye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. Oh, these things are always so short.